It's the 26th of April today, a very nice evening. Beautiful. My favourite view, or certainly one of my favourite views in Nottinghamshire. It's a view that I've looked at and loved since 1997 when I first came and made this my local patch. And I still regard it as my local patch. Even more so these last few years, but rather than it be a local birdwatching patch, it's more a local moth trapping and invertebrate recording patch. And that's a lovely view. I've just been looking down the side here at all this blackthorn regrowth and suckering growth, because that's the kind of growth that small eggers will lay on. No luck in my search, but it's ideal habitat. But not here for small eggers, here for moths, but a range of moths, and hopefully that's what we'll get on this beautiful April evening. An important aspect to these moth trapping videos that I do is the beginning. It's not just a case of coming out here, putting a sheet down, putting the light on and powering the generator up, catching moths and then going home. There's more to it than that. But I like to show that there's more to it. There's the coming out, the anticipation, the setting up of the equipment and the waiting for it to get dark. To me, they're all very much an important part of a trapping session. Almost as important as the trapping session itself. It's important to set the scene, at least I think so, and to produce, hopefully, what's an entertaining video. And part of that is the use of the GoPro for time-lapse of sunset. We're not going to get much of a sunset tonight. That cloud's just going to move slowly across the screen and it's going to get dark gradually. But I do love doing these time-lapse sections, and I know quite a few people do too. Helps to set the scene, a prelude to what's to come. Well, 2045 is the start up. The light just starting to become brighter now. Hopefully we have an entertaining session this evening. Certainly going to give it a couple of hours and we'll see how it goes and how it plays out as to whether I stop any longer. But the perfect conditions. Well, here's our first moth of the evening, and it's a micro moth, but it's a small moth with a mighty name. And it's Semioscopus steinkelneriana. There's another Semioscopus species too. That's Semioscopus avellanella, but this, in my experience, is the lesser recorded of the two. There's not many sites for this in Nottinghamshire that I know of. So it's a nice one to get, and in this light it doesn't do it justice at all. It is actually quite nicely and attractively marked. No bright colours, just various shades of browns. But a nice moth and a good one to get us underway this evening. That's just lovely to We're serenaded by that little bit of song from the robin that's, well, to the right of me now. It's going all round the light. I tell you, there's more to moth trapping quite often than moth trapping. It's a lovely peaceful night. There's still a bit of light to the sky yet, it's not quite completely dark, and it's a relatively quiet start, but it's a much different feeling kind of night to Treswell Wood, and hopefully we'll get a few more moths than we did at Treswell Wood, but not guaranteed. We might get more species but fewer moths. But I have had one migrant in the form of a Prutella xylostella. What I didn't realise until earlier on today is that I suddenly thought to check on April records of the common migrants, the two being Prutella xylostella, the diamondback moth, and the other being the more regularly recorded silver Y. I had my first silver Y when I came to another part, but not too far away from where I'm trapping earlier on today. That was a nice surprise, and I thought I've had silver wine a number of times in April. Anyway, it turns out that I hadn't, and if I can find my copious notes, it turns out that the last time I had silver wine in April was 2007, which by my reckoning is 19 years. And when I thought, well, Prutella xylostella, that must have occurred a number of times in April. Well, it hasn't. The last time I had Prutella xylostella in April was 2009, so by my reckoning again, that's 16 years. And that surprised me, because I thought that I'd recorded them and Dilys and I had seen them a number of times late April. But there's been a bit of migrant activity, especially in the southwest of the UK and in Southern Ireland too. Whether we get something a bit more exotic or rarer than silver Y or diamondback moth is probably doubtful here in central Nottinghamshire, but you never know. Never know what's going to turn up. I do know the robin's finally gone to sleep. He's calling me a liar now, or he's telling me to shut up. Well, there's been two waved umbers in at the light, and I thought that both of them had gone, but apparently not. One's decided to hang around on the box, and so it gives us a chance to have a nice look at what is a super moth. It really is. It's made up of various shades of browns and darker browns to the point of almost black, but what a thing. Cryptically marked, and a real beauty despite its lack of bright colours. Very typical moth of this time of year. It'll occur in urban gardens. I've had this on a number of occasions at home, so one that you can expect if you are running a trap or just about to start running a trap from home. So that's waved umber. I do like that moth. It's a cracking moth, it really is. Well, I thought I'd just show one of these. There's two in now. This is Lunar Marble Brown, of course, and what a fabulous moth. This is beautifully marked. Some can be darker than this, but this one is very nicely marked indeed. It's a cracking species to get, and thankfully In Nottinghamshire, at least, in most woodlands it's quite common, providing that those woodlands contain a decent number of oak trees. This is not a moth that I've had at home, but you are likely to get this if you live in a suburban part of any of the UK cities. Providing you've got oak trees close by, you'll probably get this. But it's a great moth to get, it really is. It's a lovely moth of early spring. So that's Lunar Marble Brown. As I say, there are 2 in currently. Yes, moth in a pot time, but it's not anything particularly rare, but it is quite unusual because I don't catch this species all that often. It's very much a spring moth, and it's a pine beauty, and as you can see it's refusing to settle down. I'll probably just let it loose on the sheet again. I was hoping it would settle down. It may well do, and I might actually get a chance to film it, but if not, I'll put some nice photos in, because this moth's quite interesting. There's 2 general forms or colours to this species. One is where the sort of overall coloration is a sort of greyish, almost an olive greyish colour, beautifully and intricately marked. These are absolute stunners. And the other form is a more orangey red coloration overall. And it's a lovely moth to get. I say it's not particularly rare, but I've never caught a lot of these. You'll usually catch these in 1s and 2s at your light. But I'm quite happy to see one of these chaps. And you might be happy to see a photo of each of the colour forms that I've mentioned. We'll see if it settles down. If it settles down, you might even see a moving picture. If not, photographs it is. Well, here's a moth that I never thought I would be talking about in one of these trapping sessions. And the funny thing is, I was only filming this species a couple of evenings ago. This is the day-flying Adelarine morella, and this is the male. It's one of the so-called longhorn moths, and you can see from the length of the antenna exactly why. And this lighting doesn't do the moth justice at all, and I'll put some footage in from during the day when you'll see the real true beauty of these moths. The wings are a metallic sort of golden green, especially so in the females. The females have shorter, slightly thicker antenna. It's just amazing that I filmed them the other night or the other evening and never would have said that they would turn up at light, and yet here one is. And they tend to favour the sort of prominent branches of hedgerows and trees, and they'll fly in large groups and then frequently settle, and the males make a very attractive sight. It can easily be mistaken for just flies, but in fact they're a beautiful day flying moth. So that's Adelarine morella, and that's probably the surprise of the night so far. Well, I just had to. It actually settled down a while ago behind the clock and the thermometer. And so when you've got a pristine, brilliant sulphur yellow brimstone moth in front of you, well, common or not, you have to film it. Well, I do anyway, because this is a super species. It really is. It's a wonderful species. I remember rearing these caterpillars when I was younger. They were one of the first caterpillars that I reared back in the days of jam jars. And in order to catch one of these, I had to lurk under the sodium street lights in the hope that one would come near and I could eventually net it. But what a moth. What an absolute beautiful moth. If this was a rare migrant, they'd be wetting themselves over the lights of this species. It's a beauty, and thankfully it's very common too. Well, here's another new moth for the year, and this is a brown silverline, quite often very common, especially in the Sherwood Forest area. This can be found in massive numbers and is readily disturbed from the sort of lower foliage during the day. Elsewhere it's not in those numbers, and although it's regular here at Eakring and especially at Lound Wood, and I've even had it at home, it's not that particularly common at Light. So a nice one to get here, nice to have another new species for the year in the form of brown silverline, and it's immaculate too. It's very quiet. Temperature is 9 centigrade now. It dropped quite quickly after start up, but there's not a deal coming in at all. There is a gibbous moon high in the sky, but there's a thin veil of cloud which is sort of diffusing the light, so that's not causing a problem. It's just generally very quiet. There's a few each of brindled and oak tree pugs that have come in, but apart from that, not a great deal. It remains very quiet. I have had least black arches. In fact, there's 2 least black arches that have been in now, but very quiet. So I think a cup of tea is the order of the day. Everything's better with a cup of tea or something stronger. Well, I thought that pine beauty had gone. I hadn't seen it for a while, and then it's just turned up, sat on the edge of the sheet, almost right next to me. But now you can see how well marked and intricately marked this moth is. It really is very aptly named in terms of the beauty aspect to its name. Very nice indeed. I say, not a moth that I've caught with any regularity, certainly annual or just about annual, and will turn up well away from any pines. But a nice one to get on tonight's species list, and I'm pleased to be able to get a degree of footage too. Well, probably the most uncommon of the moths that have come in this evening is this one, and this is a barred hook tip. I'm going to take it home and get some photographs of it in the morning, and this is a nice one to get. It's always nice to get a barred hook tip. It's, of the hook tips that we get regularly, this is probably the least regular of them. So another new species for the year, and it'd be nice for me to get a chance to get some more photographs of this moth. Had it a number of times over the years, but it's never a common moth. Maybe only 1 or 2 records annually, if that's some years. So barred hook tip, a nice one for tonight's little list. Well, temperature's dropped now to 8 centigrade, and there's very little coming in at all. And so I'm going to have a steady pack up. It's 2300 hours, so I've gone 2¼ hours, but I'm going to have a steady pack up. If anything drops in, then I may continue for another half an hour, but this is one of those nights when you don't get that feeling that something is going to drop in. It's very quiet. Even in terms of flies and midges, there's very little flying about. So a steady pack up, and then probably head for home.